Hello. I was all ready to say hello and welcome everybody, but I didn't have the most important piece here, which is the mic. I hope that you can hear me. Welcome. This is our Sunday morning worship service here at Rise. Virtual today, as we have been for the past few weeks, but we are so excited for you to be joining us, to engage with us in the chat, in the conversation, and to listen as we continue to explore our series on resilience today. So, before I get too carried away, I want to start with one of my favorite sayings of ours here at Rise, and that is that you are a gift. I want every single one of you to hear and to know and to believe that you are a gift. You're a gift to this earth. You're a gift to this community. And you're more of a gift than you can even fathom, if you can fathom that. So make sure we start off reminding everyone of their beauty and their amazingness that they bring to this world and to us as community. Secondly, I'm going to read our welcoming statement. This is a statement that we like to begin every one of our worships here at Rise. Rise believes that God has open arms, and so should we. Our Creator wants us to love, accept, and affirm every human being, including persons of every age, race, ethnic background, nationality, gender identity, sexual orientation, family or socioeconomic status, education background, and physical or mental ability. We celebrate our diversity and recognize the sacred worth and dignity of all. Everyone is invited and encouraged to join us as we seek to follow Jesus with mutual respect, understanding, and most importantly, love. Okay, before we get into our conversation and our scripture and our prayers and our music for today, I'm going to give you a few announcements. This is the section we always call No Mo FOMO, or No More Fear of Missing Out. This is where you can get all of the details on what's coming up in the next few weeks or the next season for us here as a Rise community. We are going to continue virtual in what one person who's going to be joining me on camera shortly today named the Jungle. The Harrisonburg Jungle. If you notice, every week we collect a few more plants from around our headquarters here in the Ice House and show them to you. So keep tuning in on Facebook every Sunday at exactly 10ish and see how the jungle changes every week. Please send us your digits, your text message, phone number, so that we can text you and we can tell you when not only worship is happening, but when other fun events might be happening in the Rise community. You can put those in the chat, or you can email them to our communications coordinator, Marty, by emailing communications@riseharrisonburg.com, and we'll make sure we connect with you. The third thing on our No Mo FOMO list is Deliver the Love. I hope that you remember Deliver the Love from last year, and I hope you also understand that we're in a time again where our healthcare providers and frontline workers are in need of love, are in need of support, and are in need of that little bit of encouragement that says, keep going. We're so thankful for everything you're doing for us. So this year, Joe Fitzgerald, former mayor of Harrisonburg, is taking over this campaign to organize meals to the staff at Centera RMH. So if you, if you donate to Deliver the Love through the GoFundMe page, all of that money will go directly to Joe Fitzgerald and his campaign this year to continue delivering the love and giving meals to specifically the healthcare providers at Centera. We have a very exciting event planned, and it's going to be on what I've seen a lot of social media buzz, 2/22/22, February 22nd, 2022. Apparently having 5 2s in one date has sent the world a buzz. So we decided that we would celebrate in our own fashion and have the most epic Taco Tuesday ever. So on 2/22/22, we want you to join us. We will be hosting a taco eating contest. There will be a few different varieties of this contest. So if you're not the person who likes to really stuff yourself, there will be other ways that you can participate. There will be a bit of a competition, and there will be prizes. So stay tuned for more information coming out this week on where to gather for the taco eating event on 2/22/22. Our inspirational groundhog contest continues for a few more days. I think you'll understand that last week it didn't quite feel appropriate to have a silly meme-centered draw of the competition, see who the winner is. So we postponed it. And what that means for you is that you have more time to submit your groundhog memes, your funny groundhog pictures, whether they be cute, whether they be scary, whatever a groundhog makes you feel, make that into a meme and send it to us. And we will have a competition to decide, who wins, again, from a number of different categories. And lastly, we'll be holding a time after worship today. It begins at 12:30 on Zoom. I believe that their Zoom link will be in the chat and on our Facebook if you need to go and click that. The purpose of this Zoom room is to be coming together and holding space. As we're going to get into in this, the rest of worship, we are going to be talking about grief and loss today. And I'm sure everyone can understand and appreciate that not only the Rise community, but the greater Harrisonburg and Rockingham community have really been rocked and rattled by loss and by tragedy in this past week. So we think that it's very important that we talk about this today, not only in worship, but that we hold explicit, safe space for the community to all converse together. We will be covering some topics that we're not going to cover directly in worship. So in the Zoom meeting, we are going to be talking about trauma, being aware, and we're going to practice some resilient strategies as individuals and as a community together. So if you'd like to join us to take time to collect and come together, please join us after worship at 12:30. We also will have a college-age specific group this evening at 8. So if you are a college-age student, we understand that the way that you are experiencing and dealing with these tragedies that are going on around us is a little bit different than someone who might be a little bit older. And so we want to make sure that we're holding specific space. So anyone is welcome at 12:30. And for college-age individuals, you are specifically invited to join us on Zoom at 8 p.m. this evening. And with that, I will close off with a bit of an ask for you. Our January total, as far as giving, was lower than we hoped. If you remember, December was wonderful, and we are still so thankful for that. But in January, we only got about $6,000 in, and our operating monthly budget is around $12,000. So I want to take this moment to ask you to reach within your pockets where you can. If you are able to send us financial support, you can do that on Venmo, on PayPal, with a check in the mail. Go to riseharrisonburg.com/give to find all the ways. And what I can commit to you is that when you support us, we can continue working to support this community. We can continue to support everyone in the Rise community as well as the greater Harrisonburg and Rockingham community. We have a lot planned this year, a lot of exciting opportunities that lie ahead, and we need to make sure that we can continue to reach them, that we continue traveling forward and making those dreams become reality. So your financial support is so important, and we are so thankful for it. With that, I am going to turn us over to our prayer. Our prayer today is going to be led by Chris Zepp. You saw him on camera last week, and you're going to see him shortly as well. So please pay attention as Chris enters us into our topic for today, which is on grief and loss, and touching on some of the tragedies that we've gone through as a community in this past week. Immediately after Chris's prayer, we'll be playing our first song. And the first song is called Not Right Now by Jason Gray. So I invite you to find a comfortable space, listen to Chris, and then enjoy the music. And we will see you back here after that with everyone together here in the living room. And with that, thank you and see you soon.
Hello, friends. This is Chris. I'm recording this Saturday night before our services on Sunday because I wanted to share this space with you. A few weeks ago, I shared with you some of my friends who have helped me to get through some rough times, and this place is a special place for me. It is the memorial garden of the Bridgewater Church of the Brethren, where I previously served in ministry for about 14 and a half years before I ended my tenure there this summer. This was a space that I would often come to, especially late at night when I needed some time to be alone with my thoughts. I often felt like I was surrounded by that great cloud of witnesses here in a special way. On these grounds rest the ashes of many of my friends. And you can see in the distance here these lights. Those are the lights of Bridgewater College, my alma mater, which, as you know, this week was rocked by tragedy. And so I decided I wanted to come here tonight to offer prayer with you, for you, as best as I am able. So, if you would pray with me. God, even in the best of times, we often don't really know how to pray. And words seem especially ill-fitting when our hearts have been broken open, when our spirits have been dragged down, when our stability has been torn apart, when our faith has been shaken. But right now, they are what I have to offer. This has been a profoundly awful week for many of us. A quiet campus in a town that's regularly ranked among the safest in our Commonwealth went on a terrified lockdown as that safety was shattered by an active shooter. A former student succumbed to his inner demons and violently turned against his alma mater. 2 officers sworn to serve and protect the Bridgewater College community did just that, and it cost them everything. Meanwhile, another shooting at a school in Minnesota that same day. Another teenager dead. This weekend, another teenager gunned down in Blacksburg. The location alone evoking a slew of emotions. And as if all that wasn't enough, we learned as well that a JMU freshman unexpectedly lost his life earlier this week as well. In so many ways, God, we are a mess right now. All this has come at a time when we are already heartsick and exhausted. We're tired of pandemic life and all that it has taken and changed. We're grieving losses that we still haven't had the time to internalize or process properly. And now this. God, we're still numb with shock and heartsick with grief. We can't stop thinking about what happened and what could have been, what should have been. We have so many questions. Some are ancient and general. Why did bad things happen? What is the meaning of life? How can we carry on when our hearts are heavy? And other questions are terribly personal and specific. How can I ever feel safe again? How can I comfort my grieving students when I need comfort in myself? What can I do to help these kinds of things from happening ever again? God, we have to be honest. Many of us are angry. Angry at the injustice of innocent lives lost. Angry that some individuals and family get dealt such rotten hands in life. Angry that mental illness is so stigmatized in our society and that it is so hard for someone to get the needed help. Angry that our sense of security and safety has been so profoundly shaken. Angry that it has become so common to have school shootings that our youth now think about the possibility nearly every day they go to classes. Angry that we still can't manage to have a reasonable conversation in our country about violence and guns. Angry at friends who resort to trite platitudes about your will or your plan or how you now have some new angels in heaven. Angry at the church that is so often too fragile to deal with real life and real struggles and real people. Angry at you for supposedly being omnipotent and yet so seemingly unwilling or unable to do anything to stop such tragedy. So what are we to say, God? What are we to do? Shall we shake our fists at the heavens and yell complaints to you? Shall we weep and gnash our teeth? Don sackcloth and ashes? Put on our stoic masks and try to bury the pain and disillusionment? What do we do with the sadness and the anger, the questions, the doubt, and the fear? How do we pray when we honestly don't know if we can, or even if we want to? Maybe we can't bear to utter words of faith right now, or sing songs that promise a hoped-for future that right now seems like a pipe dream. Maybe we can't drink the Kool-Aid right now. I have to believe that all that is okay, at least for right now. But while I can't proclaim, I can try to remember. Remember the lives lost and the gifts that they brought to our community and our world. Remember that even though we may not be able to see it or feel it right now, that there is still good in the world. Remember that we are not alone in our struggles, and that each and every one of us carries burdens that are known only to ourselves. Remember that your Spirit helps us in our weakness and intercedes for us with sighs that are far too deep for words. And remember that you have promised to never leave us or forsake us. And so, God, we come to you as we are, broken and weary and grieving and messy as all get out, trying to remember that you are still God, and praying that where our words fail and our faith is tattered, that your Spirit will speak the grace and the peace that these weary souls are longing to hear. May it be so. Amen.
You could see the smoke from a mile away, and trouble always draws a crowd. They wanna tell me that it'll be okay, but that's not what I need right now. Not while my house is burning down. I know someday, I know somehow I'll be okay, but not right now. Tell me if the hope that you know is true ever feels like a lie from a friend. When the words are salt in an open wound, and they just can't seem to understand that you haven't even stopped beating yet. I know someday I know somehow
and then we'll join in a second. Sorry? Ah, okay. I'm getting the message from the tech studio that the sound was hiccuping, and we want you to be able to enjoy this song before we come together and chat. We're so thankful for that prayer that Chris offered us. So we're going to play the music live from here, and hopefully you can hear it, and hopefully you can enjoy the next few minutes before we come back together to converse.
you could see the smoke from a mile away, and trouble always draws a crowd. They wanna tell me that it'll be okay, but that's not what I need right now. Not while my house is burning down. I know someday, I know somehow I'll be Together we can pray for peace. To the one acquainted with our grief, I know someday, I know somehow I'll be okay, but not right now. Not right now. No, not right now.
All right. I hope that was easier to hear for you the second time. And I have some friends who have joined me, and I'm very excited for that. To my right, to your left, is Alexis.
Hi, friends.
Alexis' most important role so far was being the microphone holder for our speaker, so you could hear that song.
It's a very big job. I take it seriously.
Yeah, so honestly, send her a card, say thank you. And to my left and to your right, the amazing and, as you know, powerful Chris Zepp. Thanks for being with us today, Chris. Okay. So today we're, of course, going to be continuing to explore our theme of resilience. And so before I get too far, I'm going to ask all of us what resilience means to us. There are a lot of definitions we could choose, but I like to also think of what kind of mental picture or image do you see when you think about resilience? Alexis or Chris, do you have something that pops up in your mind when you think about what it means to be resilient?
Well, the first thing that came to mind when you said mental picture was Rocky Balboa, actually. And not just because it kept going for I don't know how many movies, but just keep getting back up again. Just keep going. So that was the picture that came to my mind.
Perfect. I love how fantastically unique all of our minds are, and thus what kind of what we get. Alexis, what came up for you?
I think in conversation about the weather changing and groundhogs and, everything that's been going on this week, I think about the weather and about and being in the jungle, I think has been kind of an inspiration as well. But thinking about plants and new life, and there's this bird that's been outside my back door while I'm trying to read and meditate in the mornings that's driving me a little crazy, but like that is a symbol that spring is coming and life is back and flowers are budding and warm weather is hopefully coming soon. So I think that the resilience of the seasons ever changing is a picture in my mind often.
Absolutely. I did watch the Groundhog Day ceremony this past week, and I don't know if you have watched it before. This was my first year. It was weird, say at least. It was definitely a little odd, but apparently the groundhog chose winter again. So I hope that you're right, Alexis. I hope that warm weather and seasonal change is coming, but if not, we can still be resilient through a few more weeks of cold. Darn those groundhogs choosing the winter for us. Who let them do that? Anyways, for me, the mental picture that came up was that of a tree blowing in the wind. I see that the roots of the tree being connected to the ground are very much like our connection to the earth and to where we are. And that when the wind comes and gives a challenge to the tree, trees are flexible. They are able to bend and sway one way or another in really whatever direction the wind might come from. And yes, sometimes you have a really powerful storm and trees can break, but much more often than not, they are incredibly resilient and flexible and bendy in a great way. So that's what came to mind for me. So next, we are going to explore our scripture for today, and I'm going to hand it over to Chris to give us a fantastic introduction and little background story, and then explore this passage, which I will say might come off a little scattered, might be quite complex, and it deals with grief and the loss of human life. So it's a powerful one. Take a listen, and then we'll chat about it after.
So our scripture today is, it's maybe a familiar story, the story of Lazarus. And if you're like me, you've often probably heard this story in isolation. You've heard it by itself, just kind of read, standalone. And one of the things that I noticed today, this week as I was reading it and thinking about today, was the context that it's in. As I'm thinking about resilience and what was going on in the story, this did not happen in isolation. And right before the scripture that I'll read here in a moment, Jesus and his followers are in Jerusalem, and the crowds are threatening to stone him for blasphemy, and they end up needing to flee and basically run away to preserve themselves. And so there's a lot going on beforehand. Right after the scripture, right after the story of Lazarus, we actually then see some insight into the plot that was afoot to assassinate Jesus, and eventually then also Lazarus as we come. So this really takes place in the midst of a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like things were necessarily calm and happy and unicorns and rainbows.
Not at all.
Not in the slightest. Okay.
Yeah. So as I think about this story in the context of grief and loss, it's important for me, at least, especially right now when just everything going on has just been relentless. And I think about that as I read this text, especially today.
Absolutely.
So this comes from John 11, and I'll be sharing from the Message translation. A man was sick, Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. This was the same Mary who massaged the Lord's feet with aromatic oils and then wiped them with her hair. It was her brother Lazarus who was sick. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, "Master, the one that you love is so very much is sick." When Jesus got the message, he said, "This sickness is not fatal. It will become an occasion to show God's glory by glorifying God's Son." Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. But oddly, when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed on where he was for 2 more days. After the 2 days, he said to his disciples, "Let's go back to Judea." They said, "Rabbi, you cannot do that. The Jews are out to kill you, and you're going back?" Jesus replied, "Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Anyone who walks in the daylight doesn't stumble because there's plenty of light from the sun. Walking at night, he might very well stumble because he can't see where he's going." He said these things and then announced, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep. I'm going to wake him up." The disciples said, "Master, if he's gone to sleep, he'll get a good rest and wake up feeling fine." Jesus was talking about death, while his disciples thought that he was talking about taking a nap. Then Jesus was explicit. "Lazarus died, and I'm glad for your sake that I wasn't there. You're about to be given new grounds for believing. Now let's go to him." Well, that's when Thomas, the one called the twin, said to his companions, "Come along. We might as well die with him." When Jesus finally got there, he found Lazarus already 4 days dead. Bethany was near Jerusalem, only a couple of miles away, and many of the Jews were visiting Martha and Mary, sympathizing with them over their brother. Martha heard Jesus was coming and went out to meet him. Mary remained in the house. Martha said, "Master, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Even now, I know that whatever you ask God, he will give you." Jesus said, "Your brother will be raised up." Martha replied, "I know that he will be raised up in the resurrection at the end of time." "You don't have to wait for the end. I am, right now, resurrection and life. The one who believes in me, even though he or she dies, will live. And everyone who lives believing in me does not ultimately die at all. Do you believe this?" "Yes, Master," she said. "All along I have believed that you are the Messiah, the Son of God who comes into the world." After saying this, she went to her sister Mary and whispered in her ear, "The teacher is here, and he's asking for you." Well, the moment she heard that, she jumped up and ran out to him. Jesus had not yet entered the town, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When her sympathizing Jewish friends saw Mary run off, they followed her, thinking she was on her way to the tomb to weep there. Mary came to where Jesus was waiting and fell at his feet, saying, "Master, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her sobbing, and the Jews with her sobbing, a deep anger welled up within him. He said, "Where did you put him?" Now Jesus wept. The Jews said, "Look how deeply he loved him." Others among them said, "Well, if he loved him so much, why didn't he do something to keep him from dying? After all, he opened the eyes of the blind man." Then Jesus, the anger again welling up within him, arrived at the tomb. It was a simple cave in the hillside with a slab of stone laid against it. Jesus said, "Remove the stone." The sister of the dead man, Martha, said, "Master, by this time there's a stench. He's been dead 4 days."
Wow. Quite a story with a lot packed inside. I think it's helpful for all of us to take a breath in and out after reading through this. I also want to name, before we get further into the discussion, that we are very aware of some of the communal tragedies that have happened here in the past week. We're ever aware of the lives that were lost on the Bridgewater campus, on the James Madison University student bodies, and around the nation and our world right now. This is heavy stuff. And we're here to converse and to share this space together as we ask some of these big questions. So now that we've let that incredibly striking passage sit for a second, I want to hear from you in the chat, and I want to hear from my friends here in the Rise headquarters. What resonated with you? We heard about a lot of different characters. Which one did you feel stuck out? And we heard about a lot happening. So where did you find resonance with maybe something that you're thinking within, or something that you've experienced recently that might resonate with this passage? We will be monitoring the chat, so please use that. Please comment there so that we can also include some of your very valuable input in our discussion as well. So, Alexis, do you have any thoughts?
I very much resonate with Martha and Mary, who immediately have this righteous anger and saying,
one of my favorite terms.
"Why weren't you here? What were you didn't show up for us? You weren't here. He died, and we were left to clean up the mess."
Mm-hmm. And that would feel pretty without using a cuss word, it would feel pretty crappy, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That would really stink to feel alone and maybe feel abandoned
Yeah.
in that time of grief.
Particularly
the
by
people I was relying
someone
on?
like Jesus, who they hold in such esteem, who they know,
Exactly.
like, and believe to have been able to do something
Yeah.
to stop it. I think we have a little bit of a different point of view because we know deep down that we couldn't do anything or that we might not have been able to do it. But it's always easy to point a finger and lay blame in times of grief and immense emotions.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it was interesting to see. I think sometimes we hold especially biblical characters in such high esteem that we think that they're above these emotions that are so real that we feel, and yet these are the stories we should be turning to as an example of the emotions that are okay to feel.
Because they're all wearing their human suits,
Right.
aren't they? They're not characters, fictional and imaginary, and free of humanity in a way. So yeah, the emotions
No one has
are
ever
big. The
claimed
emotions
that
are
the
heavy in this
Bible's a
story.
romance novel.
Yeah, not yet at least. Maybe they have. Anyways, Chris, what resonated for you?
I think one of the things that resonated with me was just seeing the different ways that the different characters in the story kind of were processing. Jesus himself has this kind of just weird range of emotion. I mean, he had a plan, which kind of we hear little bits about. I'm going to raise Lazarus up, and he's just sleeping. And
Yeah, what was that about? He sounded like he knew what he was doing, and then he just took a few more days to kind of wait.
Yeah, and then kind of once he does get on the scene, though, he sees what's going on, and it says the anger welled up, and he got angry,
Yeah.
and then he got sad, and then he got angry again, and then he started doing something, and I mean I resonate kind of with that, just like that kind of back and forth in the same moment, even when you know what's going on. Sometimes, like there's this sense that Jesus was kind of feeling it in a lot of different ways, and the other characters as well. We kind of see Mary, she's kind of holed up in the house.
Yeah.
Martha's kind of out and about.
Yeah.
And if you think about the other, some of the other stories we know of Martha and Mary, Martha was all about the hospitality, kind of doing the right thing. And so I imagine that as people were coming to sympathize with them, and they were gathering around them to be supportive, Mary didn't want anything of it. I imagine her just kind of like holed up in her room, like
Yeah. Hiding from the guests, or get me out of the house. Like I don't want to be here for this.
and Martha, kind of out of a sense of obligation and duty, kind of doing her best to present the face that she needed to have.
Making casseroles, refilling everyone's
Exactly.
drink,
Right.
doing all the things that
Dusting
have
and
to be
vacuuming
done.
after everyone comes through, so that the house looks
Cleaning
clean
sheets
for the next
for the new
person.
guests.
Meanwhile, you're the one who should be grieving,
Yeah.
but yeah, we all know that. We all know that we can easily fall into that common routine, but maybe not very healthy. Yeah. So we had that, and Jesus still, even throughout, it wasn't just at the beginning when he thinks, I think I'm gonna go and do this, and then, well, no, let me wait a little bit. And at the end, he comes, and he's confident. Well, don't you know I'm here now? But then, and he's calm and collected, or so we might think. And then all of a sudden, he becomes angry. So it's, if you've never heard before that you can experience more than one emotion at a time, you definitely can.
Yeah.
From all of the incredible range of emotions that we could name, we can have, it's not that one comes for one day and then Wednesday we're happy, Thursday we're sad. It's not quite that simple. They can hit us in so many unexplainable and overwhelming ways, especially in the face of grief and the face of loss and in the face of trauma. And you see that. That's what I think adds to a bit of the chaoticness in this. Even the way this is written, we jump from one person to the next and one emotion to the next. And I just can't help but think, wow, look at these humans being human, having those emotions, uncontrollably.
Yeah. And part of what is surprising about it too is, Jesus is showing up on the scene with a plan. And if you know Jesus in John's gospel, especially, Jesus is very all about the signs. I am the resurrection and the life. And, he's very confident and very, can be quite wordy in John's gospel. But, in this passage, we see a Jesus a little bit more unhinged, which is really surprising in John to see, this overly emotional Jesus.
Yeah.
So it's even more surprising, I think, for me, kind of when I look at where this story happens. It's surprising enough in and of itself, but even more so in John.
Alexis, what are we hearing from the chat? Are people joining us?
There was an interesting comment towards the beginning of the passage. Jesus challenges his disciples and challenges the women to just believe that if they believe in him, that it will be okay. And there's comments saying, like, is that a fair request in the midst of grief to just believe and it will be okay?
I don't think it feels very nice to hear.
Right.
Just believe things will get better.
It will be fine.
If someone started singing Annie, tomorrow, that would not.
Would not go over well. Let's bring back the righteous anger.
If there was ever a moment that Jesus would deservedly be slapped in the face, that might have been it right there.
Yeah, maybe that explains why his emotions are changing so much, because he might have said that first one really confidently and thought, "Ooh, what have I gotten myself into here?" Whoops.
Exactly. Then there's some response to that saying, again, like, those of us who are the Marthas of the world feeling like Jesus' response to just believe in the resurrection and in new life, it almost feels as a lack of caring and a lack of respect for the hospitality being shown and a lack of caring about the effort that people are putting in to try and help with others' grief, which then goes unnoticed because we are focusing on just this faith and this hope, and it's hard to be hopeful when you don't even have time to grieve properly because you're taking care of those around you. But these things still need to be done for the doers. The doers see those things.
It's like when the emotional whirlwind is swinging around inside of you or around you, especially in a time of loss and grief, how do you handle all of those emotions and at once? How do you have hope and be hospitable and help others while taking care of yourself and grieving?
Feeling all the feelings.
That's a lot to ask.
Something that just occurred to me when you were sharing that, Alexis, was, it doesn't say Jesus got angry until he was confronted by Martha. And it doesn't say what he was angry about. And I just kind of wondered, I just thought of it. Maybe he was angry at himself for not realizing, for not really seeing what they were going through. Being
caught up
kind of
in his little world.
Yeah, his plans and his, maybe it just kind of occurred to him in that moment that I'm not being fair to these folks. I've done something to hurt them.
Because again, to use Kory's language, he's wearing his human suit.
Yeah,
he's feeling his emotions.
And isn't this a remarkable way, like a passage that just shows us that humanness and mistakes and imperfectness that even Jesus carried, and I believe intentionally carried and was given those emotions. It's a lot. Let's take another breath, because we could spend 3 hours at least here chatting, and so just another plug. If we don't get to everything now, feel free to join us at the Zoom at 12:30. But we're going to keep going for a bit here, talking about this difficulty of finding faith amidst tragedy. It's interesting that further down in the passage, once Jesus shows up and the community who's grieving now knows that Jesus' presence around them physically, suddenly that changes Instead of them feeling lost and questioning and, well, I can't have faith at this moment, suddenly they begin professing their faith once he's around. And they say, I've always known you were the prophet. I've always believed in you, you know? And that just shows to me another angle of the grieving, another emotion coming in. Maybe a minute ago I couldn't have faith, but right now, okay, let me prove it to myself that I have faith by proclaiming it and professing it. See if that changes the outcome. See if that gets me anything, you know? And it was like there was a trade-off, that they're asking it, okay, I do believe in you. You are the prophet. You are the Messiah. Now, bring my friend back, because that's what I want. Do that for me, and then I will have faith. Then I will believe in you.
And that's one of the things that I struggle with most about this passage, because that doesn't happen in real life.
No.
I mean, that's not a realistic expectation, I think, for most of us when we're grieving. I mean, even before a loss, you know, we desperately want to pray, you know, to get what we want, to get the loved ones back, to not lose the battle with cancer or COVID or whatever it is that is threatening. But it is. And in this story, I think it's really hard almost, and it's almost some of that salt in the wounds to be like, yeah, they were grieving, but you know, Jesus raised them from the dead, so it's all okay. I mean, the story ends, you know, if you know the story, it ends with Lazarus coming back. Yay! So they get what they want. And so, what does it mean when I don't get what I want?
Yeah.
And when you don't get what you want?
Yeah.
If you've been faithful, you believe you. What does that mean? That's
exactly
hard. That's hard stuff.
That's where this is one of those passages that raises the deep, big meta questions.
Yeah.
I want to get back to something you were mentioning there in a minute, but first I want to ask the question: what is it like to have the emotion of anger, to carry that amidst stress or trauma or pain or loss, and what is it that we do with that anger? Sometimes we can take that anger and those questioning out on other people around us, which is not super healthy. We can take it out on ourselves, which is also not super healthy. But also, I think we find ourselves getting really stinking angry at God and the Spirit and that which we believe in, because they have not given us that which we want, which we asked for, what we thought we wanted. They didn't perform the miracle for us. And we can get really mad at them. So either one of you, what is that? Is that kosher? What does God think if we let all our anger out on her, him, the Spirit?
I would love for you to take this one, Alexis, because I haven't figured that one out. Because I joked earlier. Occasionally, I joked earlier that Lois Black is my patron saint, and I struggle a lot with anger. Anger at myself, with God, with life, with the universe, kind of everything in between. And I haven't figured that one out.
Alexis, what do you think?
I am actually like a really logical thinker. And anger is frustrating to me because it's often not logical. So I tend to have.
So what about the righteous anger that you talk about?
Yeah. Well, I certainly
angry.
get angry. Like, get me wrong. I have anger myself, but I tend to kind of view anger as like a Sudoku.
Okay.
And
we'll call for an explanation on that one.
Figuring out where anger is coming from and how I'm dealing with it. So, for example, like my grandmother who died of cancer, that makes me righteously angry. Like, why did cancer come? Why is this disease so awful? Why is it rampant in our world? Like, so many questions and righteous anger. But through working on grief, working through this process, being in community with others and having conversation, I realized that I, for months, prayed that she would feel better, pray that she'd be released from this pain and suffering. And God answered that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't in the way that I wanted. I wanted my grandmother to be here and be present with me and to love me and continue being on this planet and in this my world with me. And God answered that. She is. She's in my heart, and she's spiritually walking along with me, and he gave me the belief and the faith and the hope that she will always reside in my heart. Yeah. And that righteous anger has turned into belief, like Jesus says, believe. Okay. And so I had to, that took a long time to get to that point. I'm not saying that that's easy by any means, but
just a weekend,
got my pencil and my paper, but
yeah. Well, I think it's fascinating.
Interesting.
There are definitely times when we have the loss of a loved one, that we can find some place or narrative of hope and peace. Especially if we've watched a loved one suffer for a long time. Sometimes it can be a tad easier to say and to find comfort in the fact that suffering has ended. But there are also times, like we have really experienced this week specifically, where that story of suffering was not really the case. No one was praying for a pain and suffering to be ended in the lives that we lost tragically this week. And I think in a time of loss like we are now, it can become so easy. And what I want to be really clear about here is that it's all, not only is this an easy thing, but this is a very okay and right thing to do, which is to look at that anger, recognize that anger, and do so with God, do so with the Spirit, do so with the Creator. Ask those questions and then listen and be present for what might come. Not that you're going to get an immediate fix or learn this lesson over the weekend, but God can take it. There is nothing that we can do that will knock God off of her balance,
Yeah, so just check out the Psalms.
Mm-hmm. So this is a very healthy place for us to sometimes spend with these emotions.
We have had a couple of friends who said God can take it. That have said that same thing, and saying that if we feel like it's acceptable to get angry at the humans with us, why do we not feel like it's okay to get angry with the pinnacle of humanity, like the one that created humanity?
Yeah,
if
they're
he
much
created
more fragile
angry,
than God.
Yes.
If he created anger, then she should be able to then accept it.
Yeah. Okay, so we are, again, this conversation can go on for 3-4 weeks if we'd like. And we do have more opportunities to keep going, but I want to try to bring us to a second to last question here and back to our topic of resilience in the midst of these emotions, in the midst of loss and tragedy and questioning. What does resilience look like in those instances? And specifically in this passage that we looked through, where was there resilience? There was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of switching between one method of dealing with grief or coping and another. But where was the resilience? Where did you guys see? Whoever feels called.
I was just going to say, I think the one of the things that I see in this passage about resilience is community. They are together. That's part of the reason we have the story to talk about now. Jesus didn't show up at first, but did eventually, and was met by a crowd that had been with Martha and Mary and their loss. There were people surrounding them, probably driving them nuts and comforting them all at the same time. But they were there together. And I think it's so important that we, when we're dealing with grief and loss, that we have people that can surround us.
It's a practice of resilience to come together.
Yeah, just to be together.
To not choose to stay alone and isolated with your thoughts and feelings and the experience you've just lived. No, It's resilient to choose to come together. In that
But I
time,
think there's
absolutely.
also a tendency to believe that resilience means being strong and being like capable and just powering through even when you're experiencing grief.
Yeah.
And I like how this story shows that so many people experience grief in so many different ways. Some people do need to stay away for a few days to be in their thoughts, but then
Yep.
come in. Some people need to take care of everyone. Some people need to just hole up in their room. You know, there's a unique individual to exemplify the different kinds of ways of grieving and the way people process that grief. And
Yeah.
I like that this story is saying that's okay. However
Exactly.
you need to do that, it's okay.
Yeah. And there are no answers that solve the emotion of grief or pain. If there were, someone would have, put that on a Hallmark card a long time ago and we would have solved the world. But there's not. But exactly as you say, Alexis, one of the things, maybe one of the best things that we can do when we are faced with grief and pain and loss is to remind ourselves that it's okay to be the humans we are. It's okay to let our human suit do the speaking for a little while. We can't be perfect. We can't sail over the hard times. And humans have an incredible range of emotions. And sometimes we're not in control of the emotions. The emotions are very much in control of us. So sometimes it's okay to let them be, let them happen, express those emotions, get angry, yell at God, come together and bake a dish once you feel it's time to eat because you've exhausted all your anger from screaming at the clouds. These kind of things are so okay. They are so good. And in fact, it's one of the best ways we can manage to get through these times and these periods. So I have a few notes that are also tie into what we'll be getting into in the session after this. So I'm going to touch on those. And Alexis, if you see anything else pop up in the chat that would be great to add in before we go, do bring that up. But the first thing I wanted to say here really just talks about trauma and how another lens to look through all of this, the pain and the grief and the loss and even our systems that we live within that are harmful, is through the lens of trauma, to be aware of how trauma works within us. And so it is extremely important, and what trauma awareness can teach us, to understand that these emotions that we're dealing with are not simply in our minds. They are not simply part of our psyche or our brain or our thought process. In fact, our bodies are connected to what's going on in our minds in a more powerful way than we will probably ever know. A friend told me recently that the first way you learn something is with your body. When you are a baby and you are learning to nurse, you're learning how to perform a physical action with your body, and in return, you get feedback. You get positive stimuli from the world that says, yes, keep doing this action. As we learn to walk, we learn with our body first. And so even when we're older and fully grown and we encounter something that's new to us, may it be positive, may it be tragic, our bodies are still the first places that we take in that information. And if we don't come together in community, if we don't allow ourselves to express the emotions through screaming or singing or moving or running or walking, whatever it may be, that emotional pain can be trapped within our physical body. So this is all to say that we must remember in this time to pay attention, to care for ourselves, not only our minds, not fight with the thoughts and emotions we have. Let them come and take care of the body that is wearing this human suit, this crazy human suit that whips us in all sorts of directions. We need to take care of it because as Antonio Machado I'm going to give you a quote from him that is also not copied, but found in many, many cultures and ways of saying this. But it is, "Traveler, there is no path. You simply make the path by walking." There's no answers to this. There's no equation you follow to get out of grief and loss and pain. The only thing that we can do is to acknowledge our human suits and keep walking forward. And the path will be made as we make the steps. Any last comments you have for us, Alexis, from the chat?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone for sharing so much this morning. There's been some really wonderful stories of resiliency. So thank you for sharing. Please continue sharing. We love hearing you share.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to going back and reading all of that. And so one of the best parts of being here on Sunday worship is getting to relive it again afterwards. Chris, what about you? Any last comments?
Right now.
Good. You know, I think that's extremely acceptable. And it reminds me that, again, there are not answers to this. These questions are bigger than us. And it's okay if you find yourself being the one who's providing comfort or nurturance to someone who is grieving or in pain. It's okay to say, I don't have the answers. I don't have an answer for you, but I'm here, and I'm here with you, and I will stay here with you. The way that we fight trauma is that we journey together. We are authentic, and we face the emotions and all of these crazy things that come along with wearing a human suit, and we do it together. So thank you for joining us and spending this time together today. So I invite everyone to kind of stand up before we watch this last, our final song. And I want to touch back on this fact that I talked about with our bodies containing some of these emotions and some of this trapped energy. We have to express ourselves, whether we speak, whether we sing, whether we dance or move or do yoga or color or write. We have to practice expressing in any way. And so with that, the next song and our final song for today is "How Can I Keep From Singing?" Please enjoy it, and if you so find yourself, move and sing along with. Hey guys, so Techgnomes are still here. So we're going to do the same thing we did last time and play it for you here. So I hope that you can hear this. We'll share the link for this video after worship so you can watch it as well.
No storm can shake my inmost heart. Unto the
I won't lie, my hand got a little tired holding that, so I hope that it wasn't too shaky. Most importantly, I hope that you were able to hear it, and I hope that you joined in and sang along or expressed yourself however you found the need to. I'm going to grab my notes here. And thank you for staying with us today. I know we've gone beyond the normal time we do. Thank you for staying with us and in conversation. Once again, at 12:30, look for the Zoom link if you'd like to join to keep conversing on this topic of grief and loss, specifically with a focus through the trauma lens. Then do join us at 12:30. I'm sorry. Yeah, 12:30. That was the right time. Little brain fart this morning. So let me go ahead and pass it over to Alexis, who will give us our final prayer and final blessing for the day.
This morning, I'd like to read a blessing written by Jan Richardson. She wrote this after losing her husband. So I think it can speak to what we're all going through as a community this week. Let us agree for now that we will not say the breaking makes us stronger, or that it is better to have this pain than to have done without this love. Let us promise we will not tell ourselves time will heal the wound when every day our waking opens it anew. Perhaps for now it can be enough to simply marvel at the mystery of how a heart so broken can go on beating as if it were made for precisely this, as if it knows the only cure for love is more of it, as if it sees the heart's sole remedy for breaking is to love still, as if it trusts that its own persistent pulse is the rhythm of a blessing we cannot begin to fathom, but will save us nonetheless.
Amen. Thank you, Alexis. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for all of you who have joined us today. I encourage you to take the next hour, at least, to get up and move around, go for a walk outside, sit near the window, let the sunlight hit you. Express yourself in some form, whether you need to write, whether you need to sit quietly, whether you need to dance and jump around the room, or whether you need to scream with righteous anger at the clouds above you. It's all okay. Love yourself and love your human suit. You are a gift, so thank you for joining us today. And we will see you later at 12:30 on Zoom if you'd like to join us. Thank you. Bye, friends.